Yo, what's going on, E7 fam? Pat here, back with another video. A few days ago, I jumped onto the website CeciliaBot, and using the power of their ultimate timeline, we turned back time and took a look at the original Epic 7 tier list from 2018. So you could kind of see all of the craziness and shenanigans, see what the game used to be like back then if you didn't play, or just have a fun trip down memory lane for those of you who've been playing as long as I have. And today, we're going to revisit yet another trip through, well, memory lane. And revisit the Eulogy of the Saint patches. The very same patches that introduced Diene and Krayon into the game. And honestly, even for me who played through this time, looking back at this stuff, it's pretty wild. So, sit back, strap in, and let's turn the time back to November 28, 2018. The patch that gave us all Diene and Basque here in the November 28th, 2018 update content patch. So yes, this was the patch that introduced Eulogy of a Saint to the world. Eulogy of a Saint, in my opinion, is still the single best piece of PvE content that Epic 7 has ever produced. It is by far the best storytelling. It was super engaging. I loved it. It was the closest that we had to something like Fate Grand Order, or like Arc Knights, or, you know, even Nike, Goddess of Victory. These are all games that pride themselves on having very, very good stories. This was a home run story. If you've never played Eulogy of a Saint, absolutely go pick it up from the Book of Memories right now. Go and play it. And I wasn't alone on this assessment. A lot of my friends felt the same way. We were, you know, enjoying Epic 7, but we became hooked on Epic 7 with Eulogy of the Saint. And many people on social media seem to agree. This was pretty much a home run, a slam dunk when it came to side stories. Even now, I talked to a friend of the channel, Tristan Wolf. He loves Eulogy of the Saint. It was what got him hooked on Epic 7. It's just a really, really good side story. And with the side story, like I say, you can see it here on your screen, we got the introduction of Global's first limited unit, which was Diene. Not the first limited unit overall. That would go to Luna, who would be locked behind the KR server. She was a Korean server exclusive until later on, and we'll talk more about her in a later video. But for most of us, Diene was our first limited character. And let me tell you, what a stinker. Or at least that was the general consensus. Wow, what is this? Korea gets this like super sexy dragon girl that's super broken, and Global gets this little girl and she's a soul weaver and it can't even heal. What is that? Like, why would I ever play a soul weaver that couldn't heal? Even myself, I had that same opinion about Diene. I thought she was garbage when she came out. And thankfully, my best friend Crest of Kindness is a much smarter man than I am, and he convinced me to roll for Diene, and it ended up working out for me in the future, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But even Tristan Wolf, right? This is the patch that he started in. And his friends convinced him that Diene was a terrible unit, and that he should re-roll his account. He restarted the game because he got Diene and not a top-tier Soul Weaver like Diene or Angelica. Why would you ever want to play Diene when she doesn't heal? And you can't really blame, I think, the player base, because the actual videos that introduce the characters during these patches don't really do you a lot of favors. If you're somebody who doesn't really know the intricacies of the characters and you're relying on the preview videos, well, good luck. Let's take a look, shall we?
Diene, Saint of Azera, received the goddess's divine revelation.
That's a
and fearlessly
voiceover I
led
haven't
the road
heard in
to
a long
victory
time.
against the archdemon, even with the heir of the covenant missing in action. Then she later became the Queen of Azera.
Man, look at these. Look at these. This is how it used to be back in the day. Skill intro. Watch this.
Saint's Prayer. It's a support skill that assists in both attack and defense by increasing your allies'
Yeah, but
attack
how
and
long
critical
is
hit
it?
resistance.
I don't know the cooldowns. None of that. It's not here.
Blessings of the Goddess. It's a defensive secondary skill that provides all
No
allies with the
cooldowns.
barrier
Doesn't tell me how
and
big
dispels
the barrier
debuffs.
is.
Light of Judgment. It's a basic skill that allows Diene to support her allies more frequently by increasing her own combat readiness.
Oh, here's how you use the character.
Diene
They
is
used to
an
give you a
ice
little
elemental
guide,
soul
right? We didn't
weaver
get a full
capable of
match.
supporting our allies through buffs. Not only do Dienne's skills have short cooldowns, but they also support her own combat readiness. Equipping her with speed and health sets will allow her to greatly stabilize your party's attack and defense by using her skills frequently.
Look at that, you got Bask in the tutorial. And that's it. That's all you got. You didn't get anything else, right? You would have to come down here and read the actual patch notes, which, be honest, guys, the community doesn't read the patch notes in Epic 7. You guys watch content creators for the rundown on everything. People don't actually read the patch notes, so people didn't really understand what this character was capable of. It was only people, like I said, like my friend Crest, who got down to the nitty-gritty and was like, wait a minute, 50% combat readiness, 4-turn cooldown, like all that stuff? Ooh, man, that's the nitty-gritty. People like that, they figured out real quickly Diene was kind of a broken unit, but the community wasn't having any of it, right? So Diene, for her first 2 weeks that she was out during this thing, for the first 2 weeks of this patch before we got to Krayon, people thought she sucked, like I said. And the people who skipped her, even though she was limited, they kind of had egg on their face, right? So Diene ended up becoming top tier. I'm sure if you've been playing this game for any amount of time, Diene at some point during your career was probably a pretty good or top tier character. Diene has been very good for most of Epic 7's lifetime. Even now, right now in the current meta in 2024, she's still a playable unit, right? So that's a testament to how strong Diene has been over the years. But yeah, people skipped her because they just didn't think she was particularly very good. And yeah, those people didn't have a good time over the next, like, 6 months or so of Epic 7. Let's just say that. Also, this patch, we did get Bask, which Bask at the time was pretty decent for most players because, as we talked about in the previous video, Crimson Armin was the best tank in the game alongside of, like, Krayon and Falconer Clury. And Krayon didn't have a banner. You couldn't re-roll for him. Crimson Armin was a Moonlight character, which you'd have to go through great lengths to re-roll for, because in case I didn't make it clear in the last video, you couldn't pull Moonlight 4 stars or 5 stars off of the Covenant Summon. You could only get them from Galaxy Summon, so people would speed run new accounts to try to get either Martial Artist Ken or Crimson Armin. Some of you in the comment section of the last video did point that out, that there were people who would just run through story mode ad nauseum to try to get a Ken plus Crimson Armin start really early, and some of those people even, you know, even though it's against the terms of service, they sold those accounts in order to make a pretty penny back in the day, just to give you an idea of the state of damage dealers and knights back then. So Bask was one of the better knights in the game because, well, take a look at this. 3-turn immunity on Will of Protection. That was a big deal because back then, we didn't have immunity sets. There was no immunity set to protect you, right? Immunity was not this, like, really common thing. So getting a free limited character with your actual side story here, that was a pretty big deal. It was even more of a big deal because of the stats on the character, which we will revisit at the end of this video because it's later on in the patch notes. Also, Noble Oath was introduced in this patch. You can see old pocket watches, which you used to imprint Bask. But take a look at this. Diene drop rate up banner. Limited summon Diene with Noble Oath. That's right. Diene came with Noble Oath. And myself, I rolled on this banner, not because I thought Diene was good. After Crest convinced me to roll for it, I was confident that Noble Oath was the best thing on this banner. I thought Noble Oath was ridiculous back in the day. And I fortunately got Diene and Noble Oath pretty early on in this banner because, well, at the time, this was the only way to get Noble Oath. You could see after the event, the artifact Noble Oath will be added to the Covenant Summon. But Noble Oath was the first, like, new 5-star artifact. So it was like, oh, it's a big deal. So even Cecilia did not launch with a 5-star artifact on her banner, and she was the previous one before this. If you take a look at the Wayback Machine here on Cecilia Bot, we'll scroll over. You can see Cecilia here, she did not come with an artifact on her thing. So yeah, so that's basically it for Diene, and as like I said, here is Eulogy of the Saint. But then we fast forward 2 weeks, right, to the December 13th update. This is the patch that gave us Acolyte Krayon, right? This patch is crazy. All right, just like we did with Diene, let's take a look real fast at Krayon's introduction, because Krayon, Nobody really thought Krayon was good. Nobody rolled for Krayon, right?
Krayon is an acolyte and the commander of an undead army known as the Dustwalkers. It is said that he demands your soul and loyalty in return
Look
for
at all this
releasing you
lore
from
that
his
was
life.
forgotten. I forgot all about this. He's like the head of the Dustwalkers. I don't even remember who they are. Is that the Acolytes? Is that Tenebria?
Apocalypse. Apocalypse is an attack skill that deals huge damage to enemies while buffing himself. When used alongside Immortal Will, it'll help you gain an advantage in
Alright,
battles.
cool. That doesn't tell me anything about Apocalypse. What am I supposed to do with it?
Immortal Will. Immortal Will is a
How
passive skill that allows
how does it allow me to
Krayon
be aggressive? Please
while
explain to
surviving
me.
longer.
Smilegate, please.
Void Slash. Void Slash is a basic skill that deals huge damage proportional to Krayon's lost health.
Notice how it doesn't even say that you get an AoE attack on Immortal Will, like or on the S1.
Immortal Will is a passive skill that boosts Krayon's attack, while Apocalypse enables the player to efficiently defeat the most undesirable enemy by dealing huge damage.
Look at that.
Additionally, since Void Slash is affected by the buffs of both the team and Krayon, he can be a strong damage dealer depending on your team composition.
Whoa, what is this AoE attack? You didn't even mention this earlier. So yeah, as you can tell, the video's not exactly really helpful at this time, right? In Epic 7's lifespan. And you'll notice that they don't even show you the stats for Krayon, right? That came, again, from players like, you know, my friend Crest looking at the stats and going, why does nobody want to roll for this character? Does no one see how fast this character's base speed is? This character kind of has ridiculous stats, right? And obviously, as we know now, Ares Thief is probably like the most absurd zodiac sign for a thief now in 2024. So, yeah, kind of crazy. But again, you had to read the patch notes to learn about this stuff. Look at this stuff, man. Attacks with a sword with a 35% chance to blind for one turn. 35, right? Can you believe it? It might even be the same now, but still, that's so low by today's standards. Could you imagine a character coming out with a 35% chance on one of the debuffs on their skills that's not stun? So yeah, people really didn't understand how good Krayon was. So Krayon was husbando skip, not that good, right? And now people were starting to come to terms with the fact that they'd skipped Diene over this patch cycle and been like, damn, I really missed out, because the emerging meta for both Abyss and PvP started to revolve around Diene. Also, there was still a subsection of people, myself included, in the Luna Wen faction that weren't going to roll on any husbando. We were dedicated to the cause of waiting for our girl Luna, and we'll talk more about Luna Wen probably in another video. This patch also introduced the first new Moonlight 5-star heroes in Maid Chloe and Assassin Sid, right? And the thing about these, right, if you scroll down here past the hero introduction for these characters, we'll watch their videos in just a second, right? Scroll past all this artifact and stuff. You'll see that they were added, I believe, it's somewhere in here. They will be added to the actual Galaxy Summon. So these were only pullable on the Galaxy Summon. You couldn't get them actually in the Mystic Summon, because there was no Mystic Summon at this point. So they just straight up added, here's a new Moonlight 5-star and a new Moonlight 4-star here. By the way, you could only get them in the summon system that you could use once a month, unless you're the biggest Giga Whale ever. So let's take a look here back at Maid Chloe, so you can kind of see where Maid Chloe came from. Ooh, that's a nostalgic
You could be
sound.
the queen of our store. Enticed by such a suggestion, Chloe began to work in a maid cafe, but with no idea what kind of work a maid is expected to do, she lacks the ability to care for her customers.
The first new ML 5-star. This is Maid Chloe, man.
VIP Treatment. VIP Treatment is a powerful support skill that enhances both attack and durability.
It gives you durability. What does durability
Maid's
mean?
Cheer. Maid's Cheer is an efficient passive skill that allows you to heal allies while dealing damage with your attack skills.
How does it help me deal damage with my attack
Heavy
skills?
Strike. Heavy Strike is a basic skill that can leave an
Alright,
enemy
at least the
stunned.
bonk is the same, right? And here you go. Using Maid Chloe.
Maid Chloe is a light elemental soul weaver who supports all allies with powerful buffs.
Look at this quality.
She can
man.
grant revive on allies for 3 turns to ensure their survival. allowing her team to survive
who plays
for a long
Crozet?
time, even
Am
when
I
her
right?
team only
Sorry,
contains
Demar.
attack-based heroes. With her passive skill healing herself and allies
Yeah, look
proportional
at
to her
this.
health, equipping Maid Chloe with health sets will have a significant effect on the survival of our
They
entire
advocate
team.
we play health set, not speed set on our Maid Chloe's. So that's Maid Chloe. Notice how she doesn't revive anybody and she doesn't cleanse, right? And then the bonk doesn't CR push. So all the things that you've come to expect. Notice also that her S2 doesn't give effect resistance, right? These are all things that were added later on to Maid Chloe. So Maid Chloe not good at launch. Pretty terrible, honestly. And remember, she just was added to the pool, which further diluted your chances of getting something actually good like martial artist can. So that was the thing. And then we go over here, and we kind of back out of our full screen. And we can jump on over to Assassin Sid, Elagos' faithful dog with a sad past. So yeah, even back then, Elagos was a character, in case you were wondering. We couldn't play as him, so now you can kind of understand my my man crush on Elagos and why I was so happy when he finally got revealed as a playable character.
Assassin Sid is a boy who spent his days looking for a place where he belonged, until Elagos took him under his care.
That's it. Nice, good description. Wow, 10 out of 10.
Execution. Execution is a core attack skill that deals huge damage to
So this
enemies
is still the same.
proportional to both
Execution's
enemy
still
and
the same.
faster speed. Swift action. Swift action is a passive skill that allows Assassin Sid to quickly
This is
deal
also
damage
still
to
the
the next
same.
target after attacking. Slice. Slice is a basic
But
skill
Slice
that
is a
maintains
poison
the
skill.
same poison debuffs on the enemy.
So yes, at some point, Acid was in fact
Assassin's-
a poison unit. He was played for his actual poison. And then obviously on arena defense to be able to, or arena offense to be able to contest fast characters, right? So let me jump back on over to our patch list. But yeah, those were the first two ML characters that were actually added. So basically a new type of character was finally added to the game in new MLs in this same patch. We also had Celestine, right? This is the advent of Celestine. This is the artifact you expected to be on Diene's banner, I bet some of you, right? So Celestine was in this banner, along with Ambrose, which we'll talk about more in a second. But check this out. Krayon has Celestine on the banner. Yes, dude, I want to pull a thief, a DPS thief. Let me get a Soul Weaver artifact. So this is just really funny, this image, just looking back on it, because this would never happen in 2024. Characters always come with their an artifact that's meant for them. So that's just kind of how it is. Do keep in mind, by the way, also at this point, there is no pity on 5-star characters. So you could just spend forever long and you probably will not get the Diene that we talked about at the beginning of the video, if I didn't mention that already. And then obviously we had the ending of Eulogy of the Saint, because this was like a month-long thing, right? This is also the patch that introduced the hero recall system, because, as we mentioned in the last video, Elson ended up getting nerfed along with the rest of the Holy Trinity. And that's for reasons why that we'll talk about in a little bit in the next part of this patch video. And then you can see here's all the rewards you get for the hero recall. Remember this guy? For those of you guys who are my like OGs, I'll put him up on the screen now for you. This penguin, bro. Anybody who says that they didn't have a 10-year plan in place, take a look at our guy, this penguin here, and tell me he doesn't look like Mediator Quirk. They knew right from the get-go what they were doing. But yeah, here's all the hero recall details that you could do. Obviously, for those of you who are not familiar, you'll get your own chance at a hero recall with Elvira coming up very, very soon. And then you can see there's a bunch of other stuff with the recalls, which you get back, all this other stuff. Artifact recall for Sasha Thanes. It was nerfed during this patch, if you can believe that also. Very first artifact nerf that we ever had. This patch was also where we actually got Royal Capital Azmakalis, what would later become the first big labyrinth, but also the only real labyrinth in 5 years of Epic 7. This got people really excited when this came out, right? Azmakalis was like a huge deal because it was the first big, hard content that Epic 7 had. So could you just imagine how much of a banger it was at this time? We had Eulogy of the Saint, right? When we had this content coming out, we were on cloud 9. Like, there was so much good stuff to do in E7. And by the way, Azmakalis, it didn't release completed. It only had Devourer Arha Khan at the start and Executioner Carcanus. And Carcanus was like impossible. He was the hardest content in the game. It took forever for people to beat this character. Arha, a lot of people had trouble with this as well, but I remember Arha was like the first major boss that I actually was able to clear in the game, and it took me quite a bit longer for Carcanis. And they dropped equipment, and you can see here's where it is. It's equipment that you could get from getting them, but if you scroll down here a little bit further, you can see some of the stuff that they get, including the Azaman Spider Dagger. And Labyrinth introduced 3 new sets to the game, Azmakalis. This is the first time players could get the Unity set, which gave 4% dual attack chance. That's what it gave back then. Immunity, which is still the same as it is now, and Rage set. So this is important because Rage, as you all know now in 2024, is the cornerstone of PvE content. So in order to clear hard PvE content, you need Rage, but the hardest content in the game is where you get Rage from. Now you kind of understand why it took people so long to clear content in this game. And then Immunity. This is the only place to get Immunity, which you can kind of guess that's going to be a problem later on when we talk about the Mystic Summon system being introduced. We'll talk about that in a later video. But yeah, just know this is where you could get Immunity back in the day. And then we didn't have Hall of Trials also back then, in case you know. We had Challenge is what it was called. And in this patch, it was a standoff with Krayon. Previously, before this, I believe it was a fight against Champion Zerato, right? Before Champion Zerato would come out. I remember fighting Champion Zerato tons of times in these challenge events before he ever actually came out. But yeah, this was really important because this is how you got the 4-star artifact Ambrote before it was later moved to Hall of Trials and its shop. And also, more importantly, as you can see here in the graphic, Lesser Boot Charm, Lesser Helm Charm. This is how you farmed charms back in the day. If you wanted to level gear, you needed strong teams that could clear normal, hard, and hell difficulty to get charms. Like, we farmed what was Hall of Trials back in 2018 in order to level up our equipment. This is how we actually got strong. You would play Labyrinth to get gear, you play Hunt to get gear, and then you would level it up by just grinding out all of your stamina into the challenge mode, what would then later become Hall of Trials. So to round it out, let's talk about the other half of the patch. This is the thing I've been alluding to for a while. I completely forgot about this until Crest reminded me after watching the tier list video. Part of the reason why the Holy Trinity was so strong at the start of the game is because all characters, 3, 4, and 5 stars, right? They had the same stats at max level. So a Elson at 6 stars had the same stats as other Soul Weavers of the same Zodiac at 6 stars. So there was no base stat increase for being a 4 or 5 star character, right? So a 3-star Ares Thief has the same exact stats as a 5-star Ares Thief like Charon. So that's just how it is, right? There was no stat increase differential. And that's why a lot of Moonlight 5 stars and certain 5 stars in the game felt pretty lackluster because they just had the same stats as 3 stars. Well, that's kind of bad when you're a business, right? And you're trying to sell people on high rarity gacha characters. So here you go. In the December 13th, 2018 patch, they increased the base stats of every single 4 and 5 star hero in Epic 7 to what they kind of would be now in 2024. Obviously, we've had changes over the years, like a Sagittarius Soul Weaver has had its stuff changed, and like we said, even the mages had their stats changed at some point. But yeah, this was a big deal, and honestly, it's really infuriating because looking at it now, you can see even with like Red Cecilia, who was still on banner, or they just ended her banner recently from this, the stats just increased, right? So you didn't pull for Cecilia because you didn't think she was good. As soon as she goes away, bam, has significantly stronger stats now. And just out of nowhere from this patch, which that might tick some people off, I would think, now in 2024 if that happened. People are still mad that Blooming Litica didn't get any changes. But what's most infuriating about this table is that these are all the unawakened stats. I don't even actually know what the final stats are until I go into the game. And again, people don't read patch notes, so you probably didn't know that this was a thing unless there was actually a content creator that covered this, which I don't really think there was anybody back then covering anything like this. So yeah, this is like one of the most massive changes in the entire game's history, and it completely flew under the radar. Even I forgot about it until, again, my good friend Crest of Kindness actually reminded me about this thing. Look at how many characters were changed in this patch, including Diene. You think people were mad? That's what I'm saying. Diene was a limited character. People thought she was bad. Now people realize they misevaluated the kit, and the character has better stats. Like, that's so insane. This right here is why I think this is one of the craziest, if not the craziest patch in E7 history, because this would not fly. Buffing this many characters like off rip, unannounced, and like there'd just be like no transparency. Like, people just would not even know about it, because again, people don't read patch notes, right? So this is one of the more crazy changes. And then for the rest of the patch, it's the first round of buffs and nerfs that E7 ever got. You can see Dingo got a 30% chance to activate his S2, right, on things. You can see Euphine here with some changes here. This is the first buff ever to Euphine. This is where she got the attack and speed increase, right? This will be the first of many, and she's still not good, even now in 2024. Sorry, Zeo players. I refuse to believe she's actually playable. Tierra with the changes that we highlighted in the last video. And you can see here's other stuff that was changed about her as well. And then you can see here's everything that was changed with Elson. Here's Ricorus's changes. I forgot, by the way, Ricorus was a healer. He gave healing. He was even more insane than I forgot he was. Axe God got some of his damage taken away from him, if I'm not mistaken. He got an attack buff taken away somewhere in the kit. And then this one I totally forgot about this one. I'm going to put this one on the thumbnail just because I know it's going to bait people into watching it. But here you go. Mukacha. Mukacha was too strong. Had to be nerfed at this point. I totally forgot about this because he gave, essentially, here you go, 4% at max skill level, right? 4% times 5. He gave 20% speed to your entire team, man. You were zooming back then, man. We didn't have speed boots, right? People couldn't even cobble together a speed set. So Mukacha was the way for you to get speed early on. He was considered way too strong for a lot of stuff. I remember people lamenting about Mukacha getting nerfed. Our boy, I don't even think people know who Mukacha is. Like, I'm probably talking about this. If you didn't look at the thumbnail, you're probably like, what the hell is a Mukacha? So that's a thing. And then obviously, like I said, here's the Sasha Thanes change, the nerf. And then we have all these other changes to the artifacts here. But there you go. Oh, right. There's one other thing that was in this patch to round it out. Mulagora adjustments. They reduced the amount of Mulagora required for 4 and 5 star heroes by over 40%. And it was still too hard to skill up characters because we got far less mullas. It costed way more. Like right now on live, it's like 30 something to max skill a 5 star. I think at this point, it was like in the 40s. It would then later be lowered into what it currently is a couple years later. But yeah, Mulagoras were like absurd, right? Because 5 stars to get the final skill level on their stuff, they would require a Mulagora Gora for some of them, which one Mulagora Gora, as you can see here, was worth 25 Mulagoras. Can you imagine that if you had to pay Catalysts and Stigma and 25 Mulagoras for one skill enhancement level on your characters? Like, can you imagine? That would be so insane. Mulagora Goras would eventually later be phased out of the game. They took them out of the game, and if you still had them, you could redeem them for the 25 Mulagoras. Mulagora Go, which were the red ones, which you probably have seen. I believe those still come as rewards for some Abyss floors. Those were worth 5, and obviously you could open them now and get 5. But back then, you would have to save your Mulagoras. You'd get the seeds. You'd grow the seeds. You'd make the Mulagoras. You'd get your 5 Mulagoras. You'd take them to Hoochie or whatever. You'd bundle them together into a group of 5 to get your 1 Mulagora Go. And then you would get your 1 skill level. So all that work, it would take you like 3 weeks to get 1 skill level on 1 character. So yeah, needless to say, Mulagoras have come a long way in the game, and this is definitely one of the lowest, if not the lowest point for it, was coming, before this patch coming into it, it was like, yeesh, man. So this is a big, big change as well. So yeah, that's kind of it. That's everything for this this time period. Again, Diene, nobody thought she was good, ended up becoming meta-defining. Nobody even pulled for Krayon. He was completely forgotten for like ever, even though when people actually started to play him, they realized character's kind of good. So yeah, that's a look back on the entire month that was the release of Eulogy of a Saint. So let me know what you guys thought about it down below. What did you think was the absolute craziest thing that I showed off here in this video? And if you want me to keep doing more of these, let me know. I'll keep going as well. We can talk next time about Kisei, Bologna, and Violet. We could talk about this release window. So As always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you hopefully in another one.